Hey guys, what is going on? I am here to do my review of News of the World, the latest from Tom Hanks and from Paul Greengrass, who directed, produced, and wrote it. Um, and it is Tom Hanks's first Western, which is really weird to say. Tom Hanks has such a huge, rich library of work, you would assume that he's done a Western at some point. Well, he hasn't. This is his first Western ever. And um, well, I have some interesting thoughts on it because I walked into this not knowing how I was going to feel. Obviously, I knew that this was not going to be the as thrilling as was Captain Phillips, or as moving possibly as A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which I really enjoyed. Um, this is something in between um, because there's a lot of things I liked about it, and then there's a lot of things that I wish could have been better, honestly. But to set up what News of the World is all about, it talks about a journalist, or at least like a news reporter of some kind. I don't know how they would call it back in the Old West. Um, but he travels around and speaks of the news of the world, as the title's called. And he stumbles upon this girl who's of Indian or of Indian descent. I'm not sure what the word is that they use for her, but she can't speak English, obviously. And she is needed to get back to her home. So now Tom Hanks takes it upon himself to take this girl back to her home. So if it sounds very familiar, it sounds a little bit like Logan. It sounds a lot like father-daughter type stories. And I think that you can spell, or you can predict how the movie plays out, because um, there are a few issues with it narratively that we'll get into, but technically there are some really great things here. For instance, cinematography is the highlight. It is a gorgeous looking film. So many great wides and very great utilization of blue, I have to say. Like, a lot of the shots are blue. Typically at night it's very bluey, and I really liked the blue. It really, really stood out to me. I like the colors a lot when it comes to certain shots, how they utilize certain colors, and I really liked how the blue was pronounced in News of the World, particularly when they got into the night. Um, I really liked the landscape. I thought it played out very well, and for the narrative, I mean, it played out in building this Western atmosphere. And I also liked some of the production design. I have to say, some of the productions were, it's hard to not fall into the trappings of a typical Western, in terms of the visual variety of what a Western looks like. I have to say though, even though it does look typical, I still found it fair. Production wise, I found it fair. But the other highlight of the film also is James Newton Howard, the composer. The score is delightful. He has crafted a fiery spirit yet tender score, I have to say, because the score plays in both as a Western and as an emotional piece. I think that there's a lot of beats that it hits that really work, and a lot of beats that make you just are fired with passion. And to put it in perspective, I have heard that score all day. I have been listening to the score all day. I think it might be one of my favorite scores from the past year. I really love James Newton Howard's work here. Um, and speaking of craftsmanship, I have to say that Hanks and the girls' chemistry was charming and likable. I liked both of them together. I thought they worked well together. Individually, I also thought they were good performance-wise. But then that's where we get into my issues, because narratively it's extremely predictable. You know where it's going, you know what the type of story is, you know where all the beats are going to go. Um, and the thing is though, um, it's a familiar tale. We've seen this tale done so many times. Um, and I was hoping that they were going to rise above it, and they do in certain respects. But narratively speaking, it's pretty much what you would come to expect. Um, the journey itself, I believe, needed more time to be developed, because more particularly with Hank's character, because there are certain aspects about Hank's character that I just wanted to touch on more, and the film didn't do that. They're more focused on this bond versus individually, because, well, not really. The daughter gets a little bit more, not the daughter, but the girl gets a little bit more um, development. Which I have to say, that little girl is actually very solid in the film as well. I really liked her presence. Going toe to toe with Tom Hanks, I thought she was pretty good. Um, but Development wise, I think that Hanks needed a little bit more because I could see glimmers of what his character could be, but I'm not getting a bunch of the character out of him. Besides, a lot of stoic, he's very stoic type character. Um, he is the like the old cowboy, like he's been through a lot of things, but I don't get that big impression as I should. But nevertheless, though, while the journey is familiar territory and the road ahead is an easy one to pinpoint, how it'll end and honestly, like how certain things will get resolved and the resolutions, while all that is familiar to us, the lush visuals and the spirit that is James Newton Howard really elevate this Western from its cliches to something that I have to say is worth the ride, worth the ride taking. Sorry, I just had to spit that out of my mouth. Um, it is definitely a ride worth taking. Yeah, there we go. Not worth the ride taking, a ride worth taking. Um, I know my grammar, my English. But um, yeah, it's definitely a ride worth taking. Got it. And I think that again, there's good spirit in there, technically speaking, but narratively, it's a film that you've seen before. And if you can get past its cliches and see just enjoy the ride that is, I think you'll have a good time with it.